Hello everyone and welcome to 984, and I will today bring up the book Anti-Fragile by Nicholas Taleb. It's a book about how to become more resilient. Actually, it's beyond resilience. And since we've been talking about how to gain power from disorder, from disturbances, from irregulations, from chaos even, this book is widely interesting. I think I should change this because I have the light in my back, sorry. The big idea is fragile things break under stress, while anti-fragile things grow stronger and better. This is so close to what we call chaotic system. Chaotic system is the only thing in the universe that can be permanent, resilient, going through time, and be able to have self-reflection. Let me continue with Nicholas Taleb text. Fragile objects need to be handled with extraordinary care. Imagine a situation where you have to pack a wooden item and another where you have to pack an item made of glass. Given the fragile nature of glass, you would take a lot of care in packing it securely, right? In a nutshell, you could say that a fragile thing needs to be guarded against any, speaking about fragile, seemed that my camera stand was a bit fragile as well, or unstable. In a nutshell, you could say that a fragile thing needs to be guarded against any volatile situation. However, is it possible that there may be things which actually benefit from volatile circumstances? This can be sort of a tricky question. After all, how could anything actually benefit from disorder and deliberate unpredictability? Why, going back to the aforementioned analogy, how do we define something that's get better from being handled roughly as opposed to the careful handling of fragile glass? Interesting, most of the world languages have no term to describe things that gain from disorder, so he decided to coin his own term. Thus the advent of the word anti-fragile. A classical example of the concept of anti-fragility can be found in the mythical Greek creature, the Hydra. In Greek mythology, Hydra was portrayed as a serpent with countless heads. Every time someone cut off one head, two more sprang up in its place, making the creature virtually invincible. So in a way, Hydra profited from chaos and volatility rather than being harmed by it, and therefore we'd refer to as anti-fragile. Like Hydra, there are many things which prefer, and in fact require stress, resistant chaos, and even temporary failure in order to grow. These are the things we call anti-fragile. In a way, it could be said that the universe in itself is anti-fragile in its nature. Consider the evolutionary process, which must put up with an enormous amount of resistance, volatility and chaos in order to grow and transform from an inferior life form to a superior one. Every evolution actually transforms the available chaos into new strength. This is how we evolved into thinking, walking, talking, and tool-building human beings. However, there is another aspect to consider. While the evolutionary process is anti-fragile in its nature, its constituent parts are incredibly fragile. Every organism that is part of evolution simply perishes while passing on the genetic code. It is the code that helps evolution improve its creations endlessly. The anti-fragility of the evolutionary process is actually dependent upon the fragility of the constituent parts. The system can withstand all chaos and volatility only if it can dispose of its constituent parts with ease. The weaker parts are disposed, the rest grows stronger, and the system advances overall. And through a sort of trial and error involving the constituent parts, the system is able to chart the best possible path and continue its journey. Anti-fragility can also be seen manifest in the economic systems. Economic systems evolve and improve in the face of chaos and unpredictability. And in order to evolve, the constituent parts such as business, startups, corporations and banks often have to fail. These failures help the economy grow better overall and become more efficient. So it can be said that for a system to be truly anti-fragile, its constituent parts must be fragile in nature. The third thing here is anti-fragile systems gain new strengths and build up extra capacity in the face of shocks and stresses. Anti-fragility is beyond resilience or robustness. The resilient resists shocks and stays the same. The anti-fragile gets better. Anti-fragility is a regular part of our daily lives. You actually experience it in something as simple as exercising. During exercise, your body has to face an extraordinary amount of stress in the form of weights or physical activity. Our body reacts to this extra stress by strengthening the muscles. More specifically, the body overcompensates by building up its capacity. This is done so that the body may deal with a similar situation in the future in a better way. So the body gains strength when put through adversity. This fundamental principle applies to all forms of anti-fragility. Anti-fragile systems often tend to build up extra strength and capacity in response to volatility. Such overcompensation may be regarded as a waste of resources. However, a closer look reveals that such overcompensation by an anti-fragile system is crucial to its resilience in the face of all volatility. A redundancy of resources allows an anti-fragile system to face the unpredictable future ahead without any qualms. Consider your own body and the way regular exercise affects you. You may not need those muscles you build up on a regular basis, but in case of real emergency, your physical strength may help you immensely in doing a lot more than most other people. So the overcompensation done by an anti-fragile system really comes into play when the system faces an unusual amount of stress. A stressor from your body, for instance, may be to carry an injured person in your arms over a mile. You may find no reward for your muscles in your daily life, but they may be a lifesaver in such a crucial situation. Like our bodies, every anti-fragile system builds up its capacity and strength when faced with adversity and stress. And this additional strength eventually helps the system face unknown problems in a better way. Volatility is critical to anti-fragility. Tranquility leads to fragility. Anti-fragility is usually seen only in the natural systems, which can automatically adapt to their failures and benefit from them. Man-made systems can't be anti-fragile simply because they lack the capacity to adapt and improve in real time. Man-made systems such as machines can be made to function perfectly, but they can't grow stronger over time by learning from their failures. The one exception to this rule is economy. The economy may be regarded as a human construct, and yet it is almost as anti-fragile as any naturally existing systems. Like natural systems, an economy has multiple layers, an exceptional amount of complexity, the ability to adjust to volatility, and above all, a plethora of fragile parts which help the overall economy remain anti-fragile. It is important to note here that complexity alone does not guarantee anti-fragility. More importantly, a system needs volatility and chaos in order to retain its anti-fragility. Such volatility destroys some fragile constituent parts of the system, while lending a new strength to the surviving parts, and makes the system more resilient overall. If the volatility and chaos come to an end, the system would stop improving and in time would lose its strength and anti-fragility. One of the reasons why economies are anti-fragile is because they are built to coexist with unpredictability. If the market volatility and chaos ended, the economy would grow fragile and lose all its vitality. This has been experienced every time a government has tried to tame the economy by bringing it under a system. This results in a declining economy which can no longer adapt and eventually suffers and sometimes collapses altogether. The good example here is the planned economy in the Soviet Union, the DDR, China, formerly at least North Korea. An anti-fragile system remains anti-fragile as long as volatility is available as a stressor. Environments conducive to tranquility may turn even an anti-fragile system into a fragile one. Five, You can benefit from anti-fragility simply by seizing the opportunity with no need to understand the details. During his experience in global currency markets, the author of the book Anti-Fragility, Taleb, observed something interesting. He found out that, for some odd reason, it was the uneducated traders who were more successful in the volatile currency market as compared to the more educated ones. How could this be? The uneducated traders did not know a lot about global economy, and they know even less about formal economic concepts. But they did know when it was right time to buy and sell. This observation does not apply only to currency market. Our society actually has a tendency to place an uneven amount of value on formal knowledge, while regarding practical knowledge, that is street smarts, as less valuable. However, the fact is that practical knowledge often trumps academic knowledge in real-life situations. Consider the example of the currency market. Imagine a scenario where you got the opportunity to buy a stock for the price X at a certain time. You realize that if you exercise your option when the price rises above X, you would bag a discount, whereas exercising your option when the price is below X isn't as advantageous. This is the simple and practical knowledge you need to know when making a profitable decision. Knowing more about how the market works and what factors affect it may aid you little in making a more fruitful decision. Such situations occur in everyday life as well. For instance, you have the option of either spending a quiet evening by the beach or going to a downtown party. This means you have an option, and you can choose one of the two. You don't need to understand or forecast what's going to be like by the beach versus at the party. You simply need to choose one when the time comes. When dealing with anti-fragility of any system, including our lives, all we need to do is seize the opportunity at the right time. There need not to be to understand the opportunity in all its intricacy. 6. This is something very interesting coming up now, and that is called the barbell strategy. Volatility and uncertainty are inevitable parts of our lives. We are exposed to major risks such as financial failure, life-threatening situations, natural disasters, and more, and there is little we can do to avoid these risks. However, what we can do is turn ourselves into anti-fragile systems. In other words, what we must do is to come to terms with the entity of our lives and use it to our advantage. A barbell has weights on two ends with no weight in the middle. Likewise, the key to leveraging barbells in your personal and professional endeavors is to aim for two extremes of your life and let the middle part of your life just be. These two extremes are the negative and positive elements of your life. Minimize your exposure to the negative elements while growing your positive elements as much as possible. For instance, consider your financial assets. The risk to financial assets is market volatility. You can mitigate this risk by placing 90% of your assets in an investment, which is secure against most market ups and downs. As for 10% of the assets, Put them through high volatile investments. Even if you lose them, you lose only 10% of your net assets. And yet, if the investment goes right, you may make a huge profit. This way, you are able to make the most of the market volatility without risking everything you have. The barbell strategy tries to imitate the resilience of an anti-fragile system. In comparison, imagine someone who puts 100% of his assets in an investment with a medium risk. If one day the market turns, he stands to lose everything. Do barbells apply in other areas of life? Yep. Let's say you want to become a successful writer. How would you apply the barbell strategy? The right approach. An example of how to properly implement the barbell strategy. On the left end of your hypothetical barbell, boring day job to pay the bills. On the right end of your barbell, you focusing fully on writing after work. Result: a stable and sustainable way to pour all your energy into a successful writing career. The wrong approach. Here's what you would not want to do if you want to succeed. Left end of the barbell, average job. Right end of the barbell, average writing. Result: an average job that steals your energy, stresses you out, and doesn't give you enough free time to focus on becoming an extraordinary writer. The worst approach. Finally, just drive the idea home. Here is an even more obvious example than the one we just mentioned of how not to apply barbells in life. Left end of barbell, no job at all. Right end of the barbell, fully focused on becoming a successful writer. Result: obviously you'd be too broke to put food in the fridge, let alone on building a successful writing career. In order to become anti-fragile, it is crucial you are able to manage your risks intelligently and make the most of the volatility around you. 7. Unexpected crises affect larger systems more adversely than smaller ones. In understanding the volatility and risk of a system, it is important to understand how it is affected by unexpected crises. As a rule of thumb, the larger the system of organization, the worse it will be hit in a crisis. Consider this example. You have to attend a conference next month. You book a cheap priced flight a few weeks in advance. At the last minute, you are told by the airline that the flight got cancelled. Now you have to find an alternative which is likely going to be pricier. This kind of crisis is usually called a squeeze, the exact opposite of the option discussed in the section above. A squeeze is a kind of crisis where you have only one choice to make, and it's usually a costly choice. The larger the size of the body that is being squeezed, the greater the cost. Going back to the example we just mentioned, imagine it wasn't you but a whole group of colleagues who had to attend the conference. Now when the group faces last-minute cancellation, it has to find an alternative. Given the size of the group, it may have no choice but to find space in an underbooked first-class area. In other words, the group may have to pay a lot more than it originally intended to spend on the flight. We live in an age of huge entities. Thanks to globalization, the global economy is a single interconnected organism. Your local mart, your bank, your employer, your government are all connected to the global economy. And if one portion of the global economy comes crashing down, it affects all the rest, down to your local market and your bank. So any economic squeeze that may occur in our age will have global consequences. As a rule, the size of a system is directly related to the nature and the severity of the crisis it faces. The larger the organization, the larger the crisis. 8. Anti-fragile modern professions survive at the expense of everyone else. Just ahead of the global economic crisis of 2008, many leading financial experts confidently claimed that the economy was safe and sound. But soon afterwards they were proven wrong, much to the harm of millions of people and countless businesses around the globe. The economy collapsed, banks failed, business shut down, homes were lost, the unemployment rate increased, and the entire world felt the tremors of the crisis. And yet, these so-called financial experts didn't incur any harm themselves, despite being so ridiculously wrong. Most of them continued to enjoy the influence they had and didn't even lose their job. This was simply because they worked in a highly specialized niche where they relied on each other. As a result, they didn't point out each other's blunders and no one held them to account for them. This phenomenon recurs in modern world. Certain professions tend to enjoy exceptional anti-fragility at the cost of other people. While they enjoy all the benefits when they are right, others have to suffer the consequences when they are wrong. This anomaly is particularly noticeable in money business. Bankers also enjoy a sort of anti-fragility at the cost of others. They are supposed to intelligently utilize other people's money. So when they succeed in doing this, they get bonuses and promotions. Yet, when they fail to meet their goal, they incur no harm, and it is the investors who lose their money. In contrast, bankers in medieval Catalonia faced beheadings when they failed, which proved good enough motivators for them to make the right decisions for all people. Many of the professions that are anti-fragile today enjoy this anti-fragility at the cost of other people's interests. 9. The attempt to remove volatility and bring order to everything will inevitably create a more fragile society. Modern society strives to eliminate all volatility and make all aspects of life predictable and orderly. An economy like an anti-fragile system undergoes regular cycles of boom and busts, which keep it robust and strong. But economists want to be able to predict economic patterns with more precision. And so they strive to develop theories whereby they can interfere with this cycle at an appropriate time in order to reduce the impact of financial crisis. This is not limited to economy either. In our modern society views order and tranquility as a good thing, and so it strives to bring order to everything. Human knowledge also plays a role in this. The more we know, the more we believe we should control the system than let it take its natural path. This is what leads to human interventionism in different systems. But the problem here is that we human beings are not as smart as we'd like to think we are. Our scope of knowledge can't control every element of every system with so much perfection and precision as to eliminate the potential of every possible downside. Human interventionism eliminates volatility and hopes that it will improve things. Instead, it makes the system fragile and takes away its anti-fragility. An explosive effect of this drastic change is that many problems that would otherwise surface soon stay below the surface and continue to grow. And when they do surface, they are so massive that they become catastrophes. This is simply because the system is no longer anti-fragile enough to deal with the problem at the right time. Take forest fires, for instance. Any huge forest will likely be filled with inflammable trees, which put the forest at risk of massive forest fire. If the forest experiences a series of small fires, this inflammable material is likely to burn out without causing too much damage. However, if the small fires were diligently prevented, ultimately the inflammable material would pile up more and more, eventually leading to a huge firestorm. The same applies to anti-fragile systems in which humans intervene. And in the long run, the human desire to bring order to all chaos and remove all volatility will turn our society into a more fragile system. I think we should continue into the next lecture. I say thank you very much, and I wish you a very pleasant afternoon. Bye bye for now.